Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Passive and Disciplines. We will be covering part 3 of the Paradigms of Magic, the psychological module, a mixture. The impact that Mesmer and his successors made in the 18th century is comparable to that of Sigmund Freud and Albert Einstein in the 29th century. Freud and Einstein were revolutionary pioneers of a fundamental, radical change in thinking that drastically shook up the mechanistic views of the world until it eventually burst. In a certain sense, Freud's thesis were derived and developed from Mesmer's concept, and it's no coincidence that the founder of psychoanalysis originally focused on the study of hypnosis and hysteria. What Mesmer publicly demonstrated in Europe just before the French Revolution, which displayed an exposition, is what Freud and in particular Gredlich, the founder of psychosomatic medicine, tried to prove scientifically a good 100 years later. The realization that many, if not all illness, have mental causes, and the mind is able to affect and influence the body. Since we're not going into the comprehensive details here, this brief information will have to suffice. Mainly it is to illustrate the effect that the development has on a magical practice. The first well-known magicians to apply psychological or psychoanalytical thought to a greater degree were Crowley and O.Spare. Crowley toyed with the psychological model for quite some time, especially in his middle-aged years, although he later became a firm supporter of the spiritual model. Spare, on the other hand, went just the opposite direction. Some of the theses in his magical writings seem to be taken from a textbook of psychoanalysis. Strictly speaking, the psychological model is just an empirical mixture, since it doesn't really go beyond the spirit and energy model, but instead strengthens the homocentric of the later, while disputing the bias of the spirit module by denying the existence of spirit in an objective, internal sense, but not in a subjective psychological one. In addition, it doesn't explain magic with a new or different mechanism, but instead it just relocates its place of origin, namely deep inside the psyche, which really explains explaining the way it works. Of course, such a claim needs to be proved according to psychological model. Magic is merely an animistic phenomenon. Everything that the magician perceives or does while performing one's acts takes place inside the psychic, where a certain mechanism that's never more closely defined causes the desired or undesired results. The authority responsible for magic is the unconscious mind, or accordingly to Spare, who used Freud's terminology, the subconscious mind. This is where all magic activity takes place. The supporters of this theory, and these include nearly all modern-day authors of magic, have mentioned a word about how the subconscious activity performs this miracle. But above all, with this module, the magician becomes a psychonaut. While one needed to be a spirit trader and later an energy traveler, one now becomes a journey to the soul by exploring the eternal realm of the psychic and mapping it out. One learns the laws that can help take magical control over one's own life and the world around. This is why we do things with such repetition, so it is no longer a memory but thought through action. The most powerful spells are the ones done through silence, where it is not spoken out loud, but spoken through the form, through thought form, our true will. The mixed form nature of psychological model can be recognized by the fact that a practice has shown it can be superbly combined with other two models that we have discussed so far, which is indeed quite frequent. Which basically leaves us having to understand the structures of the psyche, which can be a boring read, boring lecture, but very important for. We need to realize that we gotta look at it as our mind is, as I kind of like in threes. We have our conscious mind, our subconscious mind. In between those two is, I can't think of the proper term, but you'll hear some people call it, it's like a little sensor. It's like a nurturing mother. Well, it doesn't want the subconscious mind to flow in to the conscious mind, which has its dangers in itself. So it protects, stopping us from reaching the subconscious mind, forcing us to have to use routines like meditation to focus, to reach a state of gnosis. The trick is being able to show that sensor that we're not endangering ourselves. It doesn't need to protect. So we don't have to spend hours in that meditation to reach that subconscious part where all magics take place. Once we learn to control our mind, being able to access the subconscious, that's when we start chipping away at that little sensor and allowing ourselves to open up and actually see where the spirit module and the energy module are in a sense one. It is basically allowing ourselves to become ones with ourselves, mind, body, and soul, so to speak. So basically what we have in the first part of the psychological mind, we have the conscious mind, the sensor, and the subconscious mind. The sensor, it represents a two-way filter. On the other hand, it ensures the selective perception of the stimuli of the outside world. On the other hand, it protects the conscious mind from uncontrolled flooding of information from the subconscious mind, which includes repression and complex. The sensor is assigned a vital function, namely the maintenance of what we generally call spiritual health. Admittedly, the censor has a considerable disadvantage as well, namely, it's extremely conservative. Only reluctantly does it allow the conscious mind to take direct contact with the subconscious mind, thereby escaping its control. You can compare it to a slightly distrustful palace guard, a loyal, brave servant to his masters, but sometimes too worried about his own safety to allow and emit new sensations without careful examination. Actually, one of the most important tricks of magic is temporarily turning off the sensor in order to tap directly to the source of power, which is the subconscious mind, and assigning it specific tasks. This happens through magical tools or gnosis trance. This state often resembles the hazy period just before falling asleep, in which the conscious mind is still active but quite subdued. In this state, it can exchange information directly with the subconscious mind, e.g., in the forms of images. During the magical trance, the sensor is in a way put to sleep. Ideally, it would sleep very lightly and only wake in an emergency. By the way, this corresponds to the sword of magic. Thus, we now have the complete structure of magic that corresponds to the chart below, which I don't got to show you, but it goes in imagination, will, trance, magic. In comparison, chart 3 reflects the same concept in the form of the mathematical equation. It would be best for you to study these charts and carefully and even memorize these, since we will be running into similar formulas throughout the course of study. This isn't such a game. On the contrary, formulas are mnemonic abbreviations to help us memorize rules and laws from which practical derivatives can be gained. Our goal here is to point out the basic structures of magic and to clarify them. In this respect, this is an entirely new concept, since most of the magical literature available today is written like recipe books. Instead of explaining the basic laws that govern magic, most authors, even older ones, usually provide individual recipes, rituals for protections from an enemy, magical glyphs for happiness and prosperity, amulets to prevent plagues, mantras, magic words, or power words for attracting a prince or conjuring spirits, and so on. Even and especially the traditional literature of most recent times follows this principle. Unfortunately, we're often misunderstood here is the fact that such recipes are not effective automatically by themselves. This is a mistake that many people make, especially beginners, continue to make again and again. They constantly search for the real, true, 100% effective ritual or ultimate magical formula. Even today, which by the way, guys, there is none. The only ones that are the ones you create yourself. That's why I've done videos on about your ritual tools and why we create them. That's why I'm doing these lecture courses on the paradigms of magic, and which is why I am now reading you the basic structure of the psychic to help you grasp and fully understand. Even today, there are more than enough quacks around who'd be eager to hold out a hand and sell you a recipe without explaining the conditions necessary to make it work. Not that all such recipes are completely useless, but if we're not able to understand the basic formulas of magic first before we use them, then they're not worth the paper they're written on. And even if they do work sometimes, it can be easily seen that will, imagination, and gnosis played an important role as well. However, once you're familiar with the basic law and formulas of magic, you can create your own recipes on the basis of these, in the same way that every magician basically writes his or her own personal grimoire or book of magic or book of shadows, whatever you want to call it. But as you can see, with this simple formula that I've stated, will, imagination, and Nas, that is, that is all comprised of the first two lectures of the Paradigm of Magic, the spirit module and the energy model. Now we're taking that step forward into the psychological module, realizing that it is actually ourselves that create, that we do not really need to rely on said spirits. They have their purpose, yes, but as I explained yesterday, you can only do what energy you have. But most people fail to realize there never should be drained, because it's all around us. The universe, this earth, people, plants, animals, everything produces energy. Clear to the simple rock on the ground has energy in it. The ability to channel our mind to shut the sensor down or put it to sleep and reach our subconscious. I want to go one step further, and then you guys, somebody can correct me if you think I'm wrong. This is just a little theory that just came into mind. Consider our subconscious as like stepping into the astral plane or the ethereal plane, where we do our magic before we cast it into the abyss, where all creation is created. From out of nothing, we create. Some would argue that our subconscious is merely our soul. I don't believe that, but it's a theory. Just like it's a theory that when we access our subconscious, we're leaving the material plane into the outer planes. And that comes from other thoughts, from other things. I'm probably getting a little ahead of myself there, but just a little example. A large part of your work here will deal with doing just this. But as with any other discipline, the basic need to be mastered first. Otherwise, 1 plus 1 will never be learned. These basics are the mathematical structural formulas that you'll continue to confront in various versions. And yes, you can find all these things in no matter what. If you're practicing chaos magic, cyber magic, shamanism, which has its roots in the spiritual module. It's understanding these things that allow us to use them. So what is the formula? Well, the formula is this. M equals W plus I plus G equals M. M is the magical act, W is the will, I is the imagination, G is a gnosis, or magical trance. These things are needed to reach our outcome. As seen in the above statement, we can see that the focus of magical education must be on training of the will, imagination, and trance in order to enable effective work with this paradigm, or model of explanation. Here's a basic maxim you should learn from the start. Diligent practice on a regular basis is a key to acquiring magical skills. Repetition. As you remember, as I said, in the psychological model, it is all about repetition until it is ingrained in our memory to where it just becomes action without thought. You should know that it's entirely up to you how fast or how slow magic works for you. There's no denying that some people have a certain talent for magic in various degrees. The importance of this talent is usually drastically overestimated. Never make the common beginner mistake of envying the naturals, who seem to be able to accomplish many things in magic straight off without painstaking work or previous training. In fact, you should actually feel sorry for them, since they've been given so much and many things fall right into their laps. They usually lack the self-discipline and severity of these with less talent, who have to earn every little thing with sweat and tears. In magical terms, this self-discipline and severity represents the important aspect of grounding, since their best protection against two of the most common and most dangerous illness of a magician: overestimating oneself and the persecution complex. I can tell you this from personal experience. I'm what they call a natural. And no, it's not good. We usually learn things the hard way, and I mean the very hard way. Because it's there, but yet we've never experimented. We know we can do it. We can do it, so we do it. But we don't have the training, the technique to control it or understand how it works, the consequences of the intricate webbings that need to be done. And that's where we fall victims to many things. You know, yeah, it's great to be able to learn all that stuff, but you need to actually understand the structures, the basics, because just having it at your disposal without the wisdom behind it, you haven't built your foundation. And without a strong foundation, you're going to fall. A good magician is humble in the same way a good warrior is humble. One knows his or her own limits way too well to be deceived by wishful thinking. A warrior never makes the mistake of understanding a problem, the enemy, or the challenge. He or she thinks and acts economically with a minimum of effort and maximum efficiency. The warrior is a sound character because he or she learned to master willpower through training and knows how to distinguish between judgment based on emotion and those based on facts. Ideally, the magician is a technician without being a technocrat. Someone who masters one discipline to a T and knows its legitimacy as well as its weakness, and he or she respects and admires one's trade and all those who have learned it and are learning. All these qualities are rarely just handed to a person. They have to be acquired through hard work. Natural talents often tend to oversee these requirements and usually learn the hard way by running into walls or through painful process of mistakes and failures. Andy, run some one. So as you can see, the psychological module is where everything starts. It's where we reach the middle ground, so to speak. We learn our trades, but that's where I say that we should learn all the paradigms, because when we start getting in the psychological module, as it states, it's a mixture. It is going from being the student or beginner of novice. Next, it's going from being the novice to being the student. We are starting to learn that the world around us isn't just based on one aspect of magic. It encompasses all. One has to know the techniques of meditation. Even dealing with the energy model, one must know the techniques of meditation to be able to charge or uncharge an object. Even though we may have been taught out of the spiritual model, the spiritual model, for me, as I was learning it, it was more of the beginning stages, the destruction of the temple, the false ideas, false beliefs, falsehoods, working with the spirits, learning how to walk the tree, learning the intricate things to weave when it came to the energy, the synchronicity of it. You know, using the, in a sense, we use the spirits as our guides until we realize that once we know each step and we start delving into the energy of those things and seeing it and feeling it, yes, I have the advantage being an empath. I can read energies better than I can see things. But there's so much more. And advance faster than others. Don't worry about it. You work at your own pace. The first step is conquering the mind, which is also part of the destruction of the temple. Getting rid of false ideas, false beliefs, things you've been taught that you thought were true. Even from other religions and other teachings. We like to keep a blind eye to things instead of being open to everything, only taking that which speaks to us. Is the best way I could tell you. You know, a lot of people say mind over matter. You know, well, that's kind of true. You know, but you know, what are some of the dangers of it? Well, as you learn, you can also learn to control your emotions, shut them off, tone them down, have higher aptitudes for pain, which you normally wouldn't, because you've learned to control your mind. You learn to access certain parts of the subconscious. Because everything we learn that's magically related as a part of is a part of the subconscious that we ingrain in our conscious mind to trigger the subconscious, to open the door so it can flow. And in a sense, it's like taking on a God form. When you take on the God form, what are you doing? You're going from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. And that is what the psychological module is all about. It's not actually becoming that deity or that persona, but it's what you've learned from that deity, persona aspect, its traits, its energy. That's what you're taking on and becoming, and not the God. As I did a discussion a while back where, you know, what's Christianity's main downfall is? They forget and they, for those that quote the New Testament to your blue in the face about this and that, they forget the one part where Jesus told them that they were God. Isn't it your law that that my Father has said that you are all gods? It's right there in the New Testament, guys. He just repeats what was said in Psalms, where God stated, we are all gods. Depending on which version you read, we are all gods, only subject to the one true God. I mean, does not their Bible also state that we have dominion over all things on heaven and earth? Which that alone brings me to the fact when it comes to dealing with the spiritual module. dealing with spirits. There's no deals to be made. There's nothing in trade, nothing to be given. They have no choice but to do my will or your will because we have dominion over them. They have to obey and listen. You know, part of the energy model is learning how to give your words the proper frequency, the proper energy to vibrate. Now we come to the psychological model. Now we start getting into what the true meaning of silence is. To have it done through the mind without word, which has more power. Because then we are what we are told we are, gods. Our creation is through our subconscious mind, vibrating the energy out from us and around us, through the heavens and back. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This one's kind of somewhat boring because, you know, nobody wants really enjoys the energy side or enjoys the structure of the psychic, but I was able to combine it in with this one as it's a part. The next part, I will throw in the second part because believe it or not, there's a second part to the psychic, the structures of the psychic. And there's also, and I also will explain further how to access, different ways to access trance. Tomorrow night I will be doing the Paradigms of Magic, the fourth one in the series, the chaotic paradigm. Everybody loves chaos magic. And I will do one after this. This will actually be one that I haven't written yet and shared with anybody. But I will do one on cyber magic. Since I am doing the paradigms, I might as well do that one. But in truth, the chaos magic is equivalent to cyber magic, just a little bit. Its origins resonate from it. So, like I said, I've got several discussions planned for the future. I've got a few new ones that's come to mind that I will be doing. I'll probably just be recording them and posting them instead of live streaming them. Because honestly, what I would like to be able to do is be able to have a question and answer session after each live stream, or just be able to bring people in to share their own ideas and what they believe, so we can learn from each other. But I am enjoying doing these, and as long as I'm enjoying them, I'll keep doing them. Eventually, we'll get there to where people will want to participate and actually like the videos and share them and subscribe to the channel. Because guys, you know, I enjoy feedback. Your guys' feedback helps me to get creative, create other videos. I learn from your feedback, just like I hope you learn from what I've been teaching and lecturing you guys on. And I must say, don't take everything I say as fact. What works for me may not work for you. That's the beautiful thing about paths and disciplines. We all have our own unique path. When I take on students, I can't tell them what their path's going to be. All I can do is teach them the fundamentals, help them build their foundations. They know what, they will eventually find their path. I'm just the guy with the keys dangling from them to unlock their doors. And that's, making sure they got a strong foundation. And making sure, that they're putting the repetitions in. I've had 4 students to date, and everyone I've learned from, they've learned from me, and I've been happy with them. A couple I seen that just, until they realize, and actually that's something I want to discuss while we're on here. I've seen a comment in one of the groups I'm in today, basically talking about why doesn't magic work for me, or this or that. Every time I do this, for me, I used to be like that. Doing stuff for me, I never get much benefit. But when I do things for others, perfect almost. Well, but I also had to learn, this is also part of the psychological module. We have to train ourselves and train our minds that when we cast or do a ritual, cast a spell, and make something, that it's done. We have to forget about it and know that it's going to manifest. Once we let go and cast that, it's already being made manifest. In a sense, what will be, will be. We have to know that 100% that what we've done is done. Now, some people call me an optimistic. Well, I have reasons to be always be optimistic, especially when I can feel it and know it. We got to use those things as we do our magical spells, magical work. We have to know 100% that it's going to be. It's not being an optimist, it's being convicted to our knowledge that when we do something, it is done. And that it will manifest when it is time. I had the benefit of how I was taught in the environment I learned in, that hey, I had to listen to these spirits around me and other things. And when they said everything will work out, and I'm sure a couple of my students will tell you, oh yeah, he always says everything's going to be fine, everything will work out, and it usually does. 99% of the time it does, unless it wasn't meant to be. That's the only time. 1%. So we can't look at the negative and have a negative thinking that this will not be done. That's just like having fear, which we are taught to overcome and conquer. So, like I said, if you guys enjoy these videos, like them, share them, leave comments. If you really like what I'm saying, want to get updated when I post videos or do when I go live, subscribe to my channel. Make sure you click the bell so you get your notifications. And YouTube's being real asses about that of late. When I do live streams, I usually do them around 11:30, 12 o'clock. I start them. I'm on the East Coast time, just mainly because it's the quietest time around my house. There's no distractions or anything going bump in the night. Or during the day, no dogs barking. You guys get the point. So it's the best time for me. But I'm willing to work with people's time zones too. I only sleep 4 hours, usually. All I need. That's truthfully, all anybody needs is 4 hours sleep. Not the 8 hours that the doctors mislead you with. There's sometimes your body tells you what you need. Listen to your body. That'll help you learning how to listen to your subconscious. It's by listening to your body, being more open to your surroundings, and learning from everything. There's a message in everything, guys. You just got to be able to hear it. Well, hope you guys enjoyed your Monday, and I hope you guys have a safe and fun rest of the week. I will see those that tune in tomorrow night for the 4th part of this series. I wish you all good night.